Hello. So, today I wanted to talk about a concept that I've been giving a lot of thought to, which is the fact that time doesn't exist anymore, or that we've destroyed time. So, I think one of the most important aspects of nature that anybody can see with their eyes is that everything changes. Uh, Nothing stays the same. There's an old saying that I don't know it properly, but it's something like a man never crosses the same river twice. Because the idea is that either the man or the river have changed when you want to cross it again. And what this is trying to explain, of course, is the fact that nothing in existence is static. Everything moves, everything changes, everything transmutes into something else. And this is the way things have been for the longest time. I'm pretty sure that even in terms of our memories, neurologically speaking, the way that we store them are not based upon the event itself, but on a recollection of it, meaning that when we remember something, we don't actually remember the event, but our memory of it. And it's almost like an echo producing another echo. We never have the memory of what actually happened, but what we remembered from it the last time. So everything kind of moves and everything kind of alters itself as days go by. But there's been an interesting change in the way that we approach this. And I would argue that the reason this happened is because of the techniques that we created in order to preserve the past or preserve knowledge about the past information. Pictures, texts, any media that we've produced also contains the capacity of retaining that moment in history, or that moment in our personal lives, as kind of like stuck, frozen. And this was never this was never properly a situation that we had to address, but technology has reached a point where we may have to. When the Gutenberg press, which is the capacity of, let's say, when a paper comes in and you just like press upon it ink and it comes with all the information of, let's say, a newspaper. When that technology appeared, there was a revolution in the access to information. Before that, most of the way that we got stories or that we transmitted information was through oral speaking. And oral speaking, of course, is yet another form that changes through time. Myths change through time, stories changes through time, and history changes through time. But when, let's say, the press appeared, when photographs appeared, we created artificial ways of holding on to a moment in a way that we had never been able to do before. There's this, I don't know if this is a true story, but there's this story that when people from the colonies started to take pictures from Native Americans, and the natives saw the pictures, they were quite concerned about it. And there's this, which I don't know if it's true, this story about them claiming that they were stealing their souls. And for the longest time, I believe that people thought this was just kind of like a superstitious way of thought or belief, because they didn't understand the underlying logic that came from this group of people. And when you see how hunter-gatherer culture, especially nomad cultures such as the Native American cultures had, they were immersed and fully integrated with the change of the seasons, with the change of the environmental conditions, and especially they had this notion that the Great Spirit, what we could call God, in itself promoted this change, wanted this change. So when they saw a frozen picture of themselves, I don't think they were speaking about their literal, let's say, Western idea of the soul, but rather who they were at that moment was frozen in time, and it was placed in such a way that they could not escape from it. This type of societies also that have, let's say, a cyclical view of the world tend to have a ceremony at the end of the yearly cycle that I would say destroyed or maybe dissolved the past and allowed a new cycle to appear so that you could be renewed, you could be reborn in a sense. And that allowed people to grow, to change, to morph, to evolve into something else, because the past was not conditioning them. In the same way, Eastern cultures or Eastern practices or belief systems such as Buddhism and Zen Buddhism had the same idea. The past or the future are only ideas that we carry in our heads in the present moment. Quite literally, there's nothing else but the present moment. And Western cultures don't understand that really well, because our way of approaching life has always been more conditioned as a deterministic process from the past to the present, or from the present trying to attain the future. So we've created more tangible ghosts from these two ideas than most cultures out there in the world. Now, this is not a discussion about if this benefits you or if this actually, let's say, harms your way as a person. But the idea is that nowadays, through the digital revolution that appeared thanks to computers, the internet, and now social media, we have, from my perspective, created a way to freeze time and to gather all the information and preserve it in such a way that it never fades away. So this is a double-edged sword, because of course now literally anyone can go into the internet and find any piece of information that has ever been acquired, gathered, or produced, and that had never been possible before. And I don't think that we stop and pay attention to what that actually implies, or all the dimensions in which that affects us. So now we can understand anything about our past. But at the same time, that past is not allowed to fade away, because it's preserved technologically through a medium that, let's say, thrives on it. And for the purposes of intellectual progress and scientific progress and any type of endeavor that we want, that's a beautiful thing, because we can see all the combined effort of our, let's say, previous steps as a civilization, as a human species, and how we move forward. But it has also created this interesting moment where, as people, not as endeavors or of types of jobs or types of disciplines, but as human people, we are trapped by the past. So imagine yourself in this situation. You're talking with a friend, and suddenly they get mad at you, and it is not because of something you're saying, but because they remember something you said 10 years ago about a subject that they found offensive, or that it was ignorant from your part. Now, I would assume that anybody in that situation would actually intuitively understand that enough time has passed for that person to change their perspective, because every single human being, as imperfect creatures, have, I guess, the right to be wrong and to make mistakes or have lapses in judgments, and that time allows that to, not time, but our experiences and our, let's say, quest for knowledge and our even our, let's say, emotional experiences change that. But in the digital world, this is a completely different field, because since time is preserved, you can witness in your present moment something that person said 10 years ago as a present event, as a current event. And in this case, I'm using Twitter as an example. When you go back 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, and watch and or read a comment from a person that from that moment in time, for you it is a moment that is happening right now. For that person, 10 years have passed. For you, it's new and it's now. So your reaction, I would say, would be more logical, or it would appear that it's more logical because it is something you are learning from that person in the present moment, with your moral codes, with your judgments, with your knowledge, with the information that you have in the present moment, not 10 years ago, but now. But in that way, the past becomes the present, or interacts with the present in a way that we never had to deal with before. So what the internet and technology have caused is that, in a sense, we are inevitably judging the past with the present. And this used to be a saying. We used to say that you couldn't judge the past with the present, because basically you're putting yourself in a position where you can always look back and see all the mistakes that you're doing that you couldn't see before, and trying to judge that as if that would have been possible. And this goes in a personal sphere or in a societal sphere. Certain jokes, certain comments, certain positions, of course, have been proved to be wrong, or I love to say this, not worthy of repetition. But until that moment, we have to understand that the human process cannot be, let's say, expected to be the end point of perfection, and that's the way that things should be, because we have always blind spots, meaning that we really don't know how the future is going to judge us. And we can try to do that exercise, but the future is always away from our hands because it only exists in our present head with all the information that we have now. It may change. So the idea is that, at least for me, is that one of the most interesting exercises that we have to do now is to kind of like allow that moment where we have or where we connect with a past idea, a past piece of information that's being preserved by the internet as something from the past, to try to artificially create that time and that distance between us and that piece of information that is like coming into our awareness in the present moment. Because if not, we're going to start to transpose them to think that they're one and the same. And that is only going to create an endless cycle of criticisms and judgments upon other people, other belief systems, other structures that may have had the opportunity to renew themselves, to be reborn as the native cultures had, as a process, as a part of their own way of living. Now, this of course doesn't justify people that don't change their point of view when they're reprehensible, but it implies that we must learn to create that distance that the internet and technology have destroyed. So that's pretty much it. Time seems to be compressing into one moment. And we have to learn to understand that that is not actually happening, or that it had never happened. What we have now is a way to see the frozen images of our souls from the past, and understand that that's not who we are now. And that's why it's so dangerous to take pictures and assume that that's who we are all the time. There's a wisdom in that story about the Native American rejecting the picture and saying that they had taken away their soul because they had claimed who they were at that moment for posteriority. And that's a big mistake that we may be doing. Yeah, that's it. And I hope you have a good day. And subscribe if you like it. And see you next time.